So Cascadia Minerals is not new to CEO.CA, but Andrew is. Andrew Carne of Cascadia, VP of Corporate Development. So thank you for joining us and having this conversation. Maybe we can start with your exploration focus. I understand it's Yukon.
Exactly. So we're primarily exploring in Yukon. Copper gold porphyries is what we've been after. We're kind of really following up on this trend of geology that extends from BC up into Yukon. So in BC, it's called the Stikine terrain. It hosts the Red Chris mine, all of these deposits that are really well known in northern BC. That same belt of rocks extends up into Yukon, but is very, very underexplored in comparison to it is in BC. So that's kind of been our focus to date as a company.
Why is it underexplored?
That is a great question. A lot of people ask me that. And I mean, part of it is it just comes down to everyone thinks of Yukon as this big mining jurisdiction, but compared to BC, it's seen way less focus and way less exploration. Quebec, all these other jurisdictions in Canada, a lot of time and money has been spent, and Yukon just hasn't seen that same focus. So there's really this opportunity that exists there to make those new discoveries that I think you don't quite see to the same extent in other parts of Canada.
Well, your flagship property is called Catch.
Yep.
What's been found so far?
Yeah, so that was a discovery made in 2020 by a prospector. Literally brand new discovery. No one had ever looked there before, as far as we can tell. And what we've done is we've taken that from that prospecting level discovery now to drill confirmation of a brand new porphyry target. So in 2023, we put the first ever diamond drill holes into that. We got 116 meters of 0.3 copper and 0.3 gold. So confirming that we are actually tapping into a porphyry system there, which is really exciting.
And, we're at this conference where most of the time you're talking to investors as an issuer. What kind of questions are they asking you? That is maybe like a top question, a common question.
I mean, one I'm getting a lot is the one you asked earlier is like, why has this never been found before in Yukon? Okay. And so that's an easy answer to them is that people just haven't looked before. So that's great. But also, what should they be excited about? What's compelling about our story and what differentiates us from other people? And my answer to that would be, we're making new discoveries. There's a lot of companies out there, particularly in the copper space, that have found something that's been looked at before. Maybe they've got a new twist on it or a new theory around it. That's all well and good, but we're actually finding something brand new that no one has ever discovered before. And I think there's just a certain level of excitement and opportunity that exists with that.
Well, going back to Catch,
yes.
What's the exploration plan that's kind of underway this year? And what's the strategy thesis behind your drill design?
So this year is actually very exciting. At the end of last season, when we were focused on that copper porphyry drilling, we had some teams out prospecting and looking elsewhere on the property. And one of them just sampled this outcrop about 2 kilometers north of our porphyry target, and it returned over 1,000 grams gold. So some extremely high-grade gold and outcrop there. We think that's epithermal vein mineralization that's associated with the porphyries that you often find on the margins of these systems. So last year we made that discovery. We only had a couple of days for guys to go back in there and sample around it. Found more 180 gram material, 120, 140 gram material. So that's extremely exciting. And that's kind of pivoted our focus a little bit for the start of this season to chase after that. So we've had crews in there for the last 2 weeks, just doing a lot more mapping at surface, really getting a better handle on the orientations of that and a better understanding of that. And on Sunday, we got the diamond drill onto that new target for the first time. So we're partway into our first hole there. We're excited to see what we find underground because, grades like that are truly remarkable and not that common. Again, that was an outcrop sample, so we know it's close to source and we just have to see what we find when we drill underneath it.
For the past 10 years, I've been active in the mining industry. It feels like almost every year people are like, the market's going to pick back up. The energy is there. Now I heard it again and I'm hearing it this year. Whether or not that happens, right? I'm wondering, well, will Cascadia be up to focused on beyond exploration?
Right.
Despite price cooperation or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main focus for us is going to be working these projects forward in Yukon. We've got this Catch property that we're doing that drill program at right now. We're doing about 800 meters of drilling chasing after that target. But we've also got a bunch of earlier stage projects elsewhere in Yukon. Once we made this discovery at Catch, we said, well, wait a second. If we found this one project in the Stikine terrain, what else is there that's just been missed over the years? So we've been doing a lot of lower cost exploration work. As you say, it's been hard to raise money, hard to get interest. So while we're in that atmosphere, we've gone out and we've looked at a bunch of other targets across the area. We can do that really cheaply, really cost effectively. And we've staked 2 other projects that are very similar in style to Catch that have the same sort of mineralization at surface. And then we've got another 10 targets that we haven't even gotten out to yet. So we're kind of slowly moving that story together in the background at very, very low cost to build up this whole pipeline and portfolio of really attractive projects in Yukon.
So Canada is friendly when it comes to mining, so we don't need to talk about that. But I'm curious about Yukon specifically. What's political leadership have done so that they can actually support the industry?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's always been a bit challenging in Yukon, you were asking earlier why people haven't explored there, is the lack of infrastructure. And I think you're seeing a big political shift right now trying to solve some of those problems, which is huge for those of us working up there. The Yukon power grid is actually fully isolated from the rest of the country. So it's this one little power grid that's pretty much at capacity, and that's been a limiting factor for a lot of mining projects. Recently, there's been a lot of announcements in the news. They got $40 million from the Canadian federal government to study connecting the Yukon and BC power grids. And I think it was just last week, there was the Yukon Premier with the BC Premier meeting together saying, we're jointly working together to bring this project forward. Okay. So we're seeing that real swell of political support, I think, for the Yukon. And you're also seeing it from First Nations as well. Something to keep an eye on is there's the Minto mine that went into receivership a couple of years ago in Yukon. It's near where we're working, and it's been in the news recently that the Selkirk First Nation is actually buying that out of bankruptcy to put it back into production. So you're seeing, I think it might be one of the first Indigenous-owned mining operations in Canada. So, that's just showing that level of support that I think is building in Yukon to mine, especially critical minerals.
So I think to close the interview, Andrew, what can investors expect to see out of Cascadia in the next 3-4 months?
Yeah, so right now we got drilling underway. We're going to do about 800 meters of drilling there, so that'll take us
near surface, you said, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're doing a bunch of short holes, a couple hundred meters length, but that'll take us the better part of a month to finish that work. And then we're kind of at the whims of the assay labs. We think we've gotten in early, just because a lot of programs don't get busier till later, but ultimately we're going to have to wait for the assays. That turnaround time can vary, but we're going to get that news out to the market as soon as we can. And I think a lot of what we're going to do this year is going to be guided by what we see in that drilling. Because obviously, if we're able to find that high-grade gold under surface, it's going to be a really compelling target to keep focusing on.
And this is all catch?
This is all catch, yeah.
How about your other projects? Is there any plans there?
Yeah, so later in the summer, once kind of the drill program is on pause and we're waiting for those results, we do plan to go do earlier stage prospecting and mapping at those targets. One in particular, the Max property, if we have the time and resources, which we have budgeted right now, we do intend to do some geophysical work at that one and really move it towards that drill ready stage before the end of the year.
And last question, is there a need for you to be raising money to do all of that exploration work?
So right now, the program that we have planned for this year is funded. Obviously, we have the ability to scale that up if we're seeing positive results and if we can raise some more money. But for the moment, we do have the funds we need to get the work done, but we'll probably look to raise at some point, hopefully on the back of some very successful results.
Good. Well, again, thank you for joining us, Andrew.
Thanks.
Ticker symbols, we'll make sure to include it for you guys so that you can do your own homework. But of course, go to CEO.CA and see what other investors are saying as well. Thanks for watching.